Hi. Before going to video, please subscribe to my channel for more interesting stuff.
Story from r/glitch in the matrix. Posted by u/nuahotnu. Someone I know died twice. I haven't posted this here before, but I have commented about this incident in other posts. But having recently found this subreddit, I think this incident definitely fits in here. It was a couple of years ago. I was visiting my parents who still live in the same house that I grew up in. The day I came home, Mum told me that my old school bus driver had passed away the day before. I'd been very fond of him and would often bump into him before I had moved out of that town, as he lived in the same neighborhood as ours. So when Mum told me about his passing away, it was a heart attack, she said. I was quite upset, and I distinctly remember every detail about the conversation I had with my mum about this. Later that evening, when I was out on a run, I noticed a little blue flyer by the park with his photograph and details of the funeral at a prayer meeting. A couple of days later, I was out buying groceries from the market, when I saw him standing outside a shop, looking very much alive. I was confused AF and wondered if he had a twin brother. Either way, I didn't stop to chat. Later at home, when I told my mum what happened, she looked really confused and said that she never told me he had died. I was naturally annoyed and tried to help her recall the conversation and told her about the flyer at the park. She asked me if I was okay, cause she was sure as hell that she did not say any such thing about his death. So I go out to walk by the park to see if the flyer is still there, and it wasn't. I was extremely confused by this point, but having no logical explanation to offer, I decided to dismiss it. Not for long though. A few days later, my holiday had come to an end and I returned back to the city where I work. Exactly a day later, I get a call from my mum saying that my bus driver had passed away that morning and that it had been a heart attack. I couldn't believe it and I figured my mum was a bit freaked out too cause she sounded a bit shaky as well. Not knowing what else to say, I asked her to check if a blue flyer with details of his funeral and prayer meetings was up by the park, whenever she would step out for a walk. Later that evening, she confirmed there was a blue flyer with those details and his picture. Mum dismissed it as a coincidence and has never spoken about this incident again. Whenever I have tried to remind her, she says she doesn't remember all the details. But I know it's not true and that she does remember this. It's just so freaky and I get the chills every time that I think about this. I just haven't been able to explain what happened.
Story from r/glitch in the matrix. Posted by u/very overwhelmed. A house and family just disappeared as if it never existed. So when me and my sister first moved to this small town somewhere in Indiana, we decided to talk walks together and stuff. Let me note that we have witnessed a lot of scary and strange things, but this just blows my mind. One day when we were walking down 11th Street, we saw this nice couple with a kitten and decided to converse with them. After a while we told them that we'd be back tomorrow to see the kitten again. I shit you not, me and her went back to the same street in the house only to find an empty field with no signs that any house had been there before. Me and my sister were confused and left scratching out heads as we headed back home. After a couple of weeks, curiosity had gotten the best of me and I walked around the block and nearby area to try and find this couple. I went back onto the same street and asked a neighbor if there had ever been a house there, and in which he replied, "There's never been a house there at all." My face drained of color as I walked back home. Still to this day me and my sister are left confused. Can someone explain this? Even the land where the house stood is untouched. I thought maybe it had been demolished, but no evidence of demolishment was ever found.
Story from r/glitch in the matrix. Posted by u/garlalov. The son and dad on the escalator. My first post, and not sure if this fits here, and it's not something scary but definitely really weird. Either that or just a 0.0001 chance coincidence. I'm from Norway and I'm fortunate to travel a lot. And during my travels I've seen the same dad and son on 3 different occasions, in 3 different continents, in 3 different decades. And they looked exactly the same each time. So, the first time I saw them was in New York back in 1999. I took an escalator in a mall near Times Square. I was going down, they were going up. All 3 of us stared at each other until I reached the bottom and they the top. Fast forward to 2009. I'm in Rome with my family, and in a new mall, new escalator, I see them again. They look exactly the same, and I realize that I've seen them before. We do the same thing, stare until I reach the bottom and they the top. Fast forward again, this time to Dubai in 2019. I'm at the Dubai Mall and you guessed it. There they are. This time it looked like they recognized me too. They just stared at me different this time. Like, they didn't want me to see them. They both looked very serious and angry almost. This time I felt super uncomfortable because I immediately recognized them. And this is 20 years after I saw them the first time, which raises a few questions. First of all, why do I keep seeing them in the exact same situation? And why don't they age? Is it just a coincidence? Why always on the escalator? And why do they stare at me until I'm out of sight? The weird thing is that in the malls I've seen them in you usually walk around for a few hours, but I've never seen them anywhere else besides the escalator. Also, the son looked to be around 14 to 15. That's why it was so easy to see that they hadn't aged a bit. Kid was still 14 to 15 20 years later. What do you guys think? Edit, years, percentage. Story from r/glitch in the matrix. Posted by u/s8drk8. This is one of the weirdest occurrences that I've encountered thus far. I have a sister that is going to her junior prom this year, which has now been postponed due to the virus, but that's not important to this story. We went to get her dress and all that jazz, but of course, my sister is rather short, so upon buying her dress, we knew that we would have to reach out to some kind of seamstress to hem it for her. My mom knew of no seamstresses or anything like that from previous experience, so she started asking around and whatever to all of her friends, but none had anyone who would have been available for the next 4 months. They were all overbooked due to prom. After several weeks, my mom spoke to my aunt who, mind you, she does not speak too often. So my mom gets a name from her and calls to speak with this lady named Jess. Please keep in mind that my aunt hadn't had any contact with this woman in the last 6 to 12 months, and did not reach out to tell her that she had given her information to anyone when she gave my mom her name. This is where things get super weird. About a week later, my mom called to schedule a meeting for Jess to hem my sister's dress. The next day, my aunt reached out to my mom once again to chat over the phone, which again is a little out of the ordinary because they don't talk often. My aunt made a comment to my mom about these strange photos that were somehow added in with her order at our local Walgreens. I guess she ordered pictures to be printed, and some strange random photos were added in with her own. Guess whose photos these were? Jess's. What are the odds that Jess's photos get mixed in with my aunt's at our Walgreens? Also note that Jess lives several towns over, the day after my mom decided to finally call about the prom dress. When there has been absolutely no communication between the two of them for at least 6 months. My aunt contacted Jess immediately when she recognized her in them, and Jess was just as bewildered as all of us. She swore she never sent those specific photos to anyone, for they were just random pictures of some furniture and some of her and her husband. I don't know if I'm looking at this wrong or if I'm just being dramatic about it, but I think the whole situation is just bizarre, and just seems too random to be random. Please LMK what you all think below. I'm eager to hear other explanations and possibilities. Story from r/glitch in the matrix. Posted by u/passionperry. A man I met could read my mind. So this really freaked me out and fascinated me at the same time. A few years ago I went to prison for robbery. Stupid mistake, please don't judge me, nobody got hurt. Anyway, I got a new cellmate one day and we started talking, and a few weeks later he said look at me and think of a word, any word. So I did, and his eyes were moving left to right looking into mine, and he said you've got to picture the way it's spelt in your mind. So I did, and he said you're thinking of the word Cuba, like the country, which I was. I thought nah, this is a trick, so we tried it again and again and he got it right every time. So I said okay, I'm gonna think of a number, and you wrote it down. It was something ridiculous like 1,483,002, and he got it exactly right. Then I kept asking him every day to read my mind again, and he said I wish I didn't tell you. Whenever I tell people they never leave me alone, haha. What do you guys think? Story from r/glitch in the matrix. Posted by u/antisocial zoomer. When you go to an empty place and minutes later it's full of people. Maybe this is not a glitch but feature, lol, but I couldn't find a more suitable subreddit. So as title says, is this happening to you guys too? It happens to me so often and reminds me the mechanics of video game The Sims. In that game, whenever your characters goes to a community lot, it's almost always empty at first. Then several NPCs and townies begins to gather. It's like that for me earl too. I go to a cafe, there is only one person besides me and mom, we sat and relaxed, then a minute later there's a big crowd. I've had many other situations like this throughout my life. This is one of the things that makes me think of simulation theory, but I also wonder if there is a scientific/logical explanation for it. Story from r/glitch in the matrix. Posted by u/a_Jenkins_ at Picasso Man. Alright, so I've contemplated telling this story since I found this sub weeks ago and I decided to go ahead and share. Late last summer on a clear and sunny day, my wife and I were out for a drive, hitting some winding back roads in a populated but still pretty secluded area near where we live. We came up on a long sweeping corner. I saw a man riding a bicycle. He was on the right-hand shoulder of the road riding towards me about 500 meters away. As I saw him, I slowed to make sure he was safe, and as he came into clear view, the car was traveling about 45 km per hour, quite slow. His face caught my attention and basically looked scrambled and out of proportion. I slowed the car even more as we passed each other. He stared at us with what looked like a giant human eye. His face almost resembled a Picasso painting. This was not a human with a deformity. It was not someone wearing a mask. It was something completely different. It was almost like his face had loaded incorrectly and appeared scrambled. One large eye barely attached to his head, one normal-sized eye, a nose that looked almost pixelated, and a mouth on the side of his face. He stared right at us as we passed. It was absolutely jarring. As we slowly passed in silence, I saw my wife turn to see him from behind. As I was frantically checking my mirrors, I all but stopped the car and we both looked at each other and said, "What the f*** was that?" We confirmed to each other what we had seen. Confirmed the details of the man's face were not some sort of illusion or strange Halloween mask, and then drove home. We were both left shaken from this incident. I'm definitely not sure what it is we saw. I have no rational explanation for our shared experience other than to say it was some sort of glitch, either with my wife and I or whatever we saw on the bike that day.
Thanks for watching. Please do like, share, comment and subscribe for more videos.